You're not getting rid of me that easy, Mayfair Witches. Though, you've tried. Hello, everyone. Terrence with Hollywood already did it. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The 7th episode of Mayfair Witches, called Tessa, is here. So, look, I thought the last episode was probably the best episode they've had of the season. I just wish we didn't have pretty much 4 filler episodes that occurred in the middle that kind of made what feels like is a 8-episode stretch could have probably been like a 4-episode miniseries. And I think with the liberties that they're taking with the books, as the book readers have told me, the stuff that they're adding isn't adding anything to the lore. Because as a non-book reader and just a viewer of the show, there's a lot of just dragging and moving through the sand. This episode, however, begins with the end of the last episode. It sort of ended on a high. It was a rush that was happening. So this one sort of has to follow along. Connection, trajectory, and sort of a little bit more progression and progressiveness. We do begin with Cyprian still being stuck in the dream world and kind of trying to figure his way out. He's yelling to the high heavens and not really getting the response that he wants. Eventually, Artuna, who was the woman that saved his life in the first place, but also helped him get into this dream state, states that he needs to find the totem that exists in that dream, that cross pendant in the dream, because that is what got him in there. We no longer have it here, so you need to find it there. Or the only other option is to die in the dream, and we don't really know what happens to you if that is the choice that you choose. We then pick up with Rowan kind of walking away from the house and realizes that she's pregnant. She's up on the street and she checked herself out. Realized like, oh, yep, there's a baby in there. I got a baby. Sure. I mean, that's a way to find out. I think we've already sort of set a precedent that she can look into people's bodies. And so why not look into her own? But in that, she kind of realizes that it's Cyprian's baby, which again, I really don't feel like they've done a good job of establishing that they're actually a relationship other than like, oh yeah, they keep waking up and sleeping in bed together, but it just doesn't feel connected. Neither here nor there. She's pregnant. She believes it's Cyprian. However, I believe she thinks that this may have been at the hands of Lasher, because the time that probably conception would have occurred is when they're in that constant loop in the house. She's like, hey, did Lasher sort of have a way to make this happen? Or does he have his hand in this? Is this baby not 100% Cyprian's? Because if it was made, created in the magic, it gets a little dicey for her. So she wants to return back to Tessa to be like, hey, can you ask Lasher a question for me? I just need to know, is this his doing or is this all me and Sip? She tries to call Sip, get his attention. Obviously, he's in the dream world. He ain't answering. Tessa picks back up in the cage with Keith, who is the morgue guy. And they have her sort of in this Mayfair factory, this auto factory that's been closed down. Arlo still is the lead there, but Tessa keeps trying to use her powers, her glamour, to persuade Keith to free her. She's doing everything possible to kind of use that for her benefit, but every time she almost has him, someone interrupts it. She starts using her wiles and be like, hey, yo, you handsome as hell. How about you come unlock this door? But then it is stopped by the female of the group. So as Rowan heads to Tessa to kind of find out, get the question from Lasher, she's met by some of her aunts, and they're giving her the cold shoulder. They're like, look, why are you here? You said you don't want no parts of this. You gave up Lasher, you gave up our legacy. Go on back home. Don't come here. She's like, no, can I talk? I got a question that I need to ask her. And they realize that Tessa didn't make it home, and no one knows where she's at. Then you start hearing the aunts in the living room sort of they had a premonition that Tessa's been caught, and they don't really know what's going on and where she's at. So at that point, Rowan's timing is not the best, but it's at that point Rowan lets them know, like, hey, yo, Tessa did inform me of this group that was like tagging stuff about my mom's heart and kind of doing this. She wanted to go after them, and I told her not to. And they're like, well, of course she's going to go after them now. She feels like she has Lasher. She's going to go in there guns blazing. And Rowan's like, well, she has Lasher, so what are we worried about? And well, obviously, in this point, Lasher hasn't come out to help Tessa. Um, so they start laying in on her. They're like, "Yo, this is your fault. You should have been there to help her. What blah blah blah." And then they're like, "Hey, yo, Lasher's clearly not with her. He's still with you. Call him." And she's like, "No, nah." And he's like, "Well, you wanted to ask him a question?" I'm like, "Yes, I did. However, I wanted to ask him a question with Tessa being in control. I don't want to invite him in because that just makes things messy. I don't want to bring him back into my life or into my world. I don't have him now, and I'm not sure as hell not trying to do so to bring him back in." Arlo has a meeting with the crew, with Keith and all of these folks, and says the plan is to burn Tessa alive, sort of like they did in the precursor with Suzanne, sort of to burn her alive and prove that she's a witch. She's either going to die. They got some great thoughts about this. She's either going to die and not be a witch, or she's going to do something to show her power. But either way, we're going to tape it so we can have it for proof, but we're going to burn her. And one of his minions is like, "Yo, real quick, we can't use lighter fluid because her bones will still show. Got to with this special stuff that will make her bones dissolve in the fire." And he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, go get that." So that buys a little bit more time for the family to find Tessa, and Tessa to sort of try to escape. Um, Tessa keeps trying to call out to Lasher, but Lasher obviously is just not responding. While in the dream state, Cyprian is asked by her little sister to come see Suzanne, and it's essentially it's a setup. He goes to see Suzanne. He sees that the pendant is around her. He's like, "I need that," but it's more of a drawing in to have a face to face with Lasher, because what Lasher reveals is that Cyprian is in the dream of Lasher. Like this is Lasher's dream, so he can control. He sort of controls the narrative. He can control who's in and who's out, and he can control what is sort of the manifestations that Cyprian sees. To that point, the Lasher drops the bomb on Cyprian that, "Yo, Rowan's pregnant," and he's like, "Oh, I got to get back to her now." And he's like, "Nope, you don't, because you're trying to domesticate her. You're trying to take the teeth out of this super powerful witch. You're trying to make her domesticated, turn to a house cat." And he's like, "I'm trying to give her all the power. I want her to be the best version of herself that she can be." And Cyprian shoots back, like, "You just want her to be powerful so that you two together can be this most powerful being. It gives you power if she's at her highest." It is then sort of revealed that Lasher is the one. He's put forth this plan that um, that will force Rowan to have to call on to him in her greatest hour of need. She's going to have to call out to him, and she will take forth her great prophecy of calling me out, and we will be one together, and you will be nothing to her. So it's clear that he's not responding. He is with Tessa, but he's not responding on purpose because he wants whatever happens to her to manifest and force Rowan to be the one to have to call out and reach out to him for help. Honestly, it's the smartest thing and most devious thing that Lasher has done this entire series. The one time when I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he actually has a plan," as opposed to just showing up and doing parlor tricks. Uncle Cortland shows up to the house, and they get a scry, I believe is what they call it, who's a person, a medium who can kind of, based on blood, can sort of see where someone is. But Cortland is there with Rowan, and he's kind of asking her, like, "Hey, if Lasher's not with her, with Tessa, and Lasher's not with you, where is he? You should call on him." He's like, "No, I'm not doing that. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not doing that." And at that moment, he still seems like he is asking her to, like, "Hey, should reach out to him. Have you done it? We should." And Rowan just saying, "No, we're not doing that." We then get to see a moment where Rowan actually is super smart, because when the scry uses the blood of Tessa's mother, it said it's too muddy. There's too many bloodlines. He can't make out exactly where she's at because he uses the blood to sort of see where they're at. Um, Funny line from one of her sisters, like, "Oh, that's because you got too many damn kids." Um, but then Rowan realized, like, "Hey, if that's the reason, how about you use my blood to to see where she's at?" And they're like, "What?" It's like, "Well, my mom's heart is probably still in the vicinity of where these folks are, and I'm her only child. So if you use my blood, you'll be able to find it." All right, Rowan. Okay, I see you. I see you out here thinking. It works. They get the location. They find out where she's at. And everybody starts making this plan to split up and go to this warehouse, try to go find her, trying to get in that vicinity of where she is. And they have make a plan that if anybody gets there first, text the others so they can come in together, so nobody is going in there guns blazing or hellfire first. They don't want to show their hand that they're witches, but they want to de-escalate the situation and get Tessa out of there cleanly and calmly. As they're all leaving, Cortland grabs Rowan again, like, yo, you need to call him now. He starts getting forceful with her. This is when Rowan's got Rowan reaches in a little bit and be like, hey, yo, I'm gonna tickle this ALS bone a little bit. You're gonna feel that ALS real quick. And all of a sudden, the forcefulness that he was grabbing Rowan, he now becomes this weakened state, and he is both emasculated and in a lot of pain. Is at that point. His daughter doesn't know what's going on, but she just says, Rowan says as she's leaving, like, hey, he needs you right now. You need to be with him. And I'm gonna go head out. It's cold-blooded, Rowan. I get it. He was being very forceful, and the man putting his hands on you. Tickling that ALS bone, whew, that's rough. Tessa tries to find some sort of commonality with the woman of Arlo's team. She's like, hey, we're women. We need to stick together. I'm not a witch. Like, come on, let me go. At that point, that she kind of goes into like, this place is the Mayfair auto place, and it has displaced a lot of people out of work, a lot of jobs. And while you may not be a witch, you are a Mayfair, and you've benefited from this money, and so you need to learn a lesson. And she's like, no, I'm not letting you go. We're gonna go ahead and handle this and burn you up. Once Alexandra disappears in Alexandra's dream with Cyprian, Cyprian is no longer has a way out. Suzanne, when the pendant is also gone, so he's just in full stuck mode. He does remember that the other option was to die, and he's like, well, look, I don't have a choice. So he creates this poison hemblade or something to that effect, I believe is the name of it, and drinks it, and he dies in the dream. Luckily, it works, and he wakes up kind of freaked out, like, yo, I gotta get to Rowan. Gotta get to Rowan quickly. It's at this point that we realize that Cortland and the head of the Telemasca are in cahoots. And they're on the phone together, and he's like, yo, it's about to go down. I think she's about to call him. If she doesn't, we need to find a way to make sure that he does. So stop whatever's happening on your end. Make sure that Cyprian doesn't get there, because that's when it sort of de-escalate her. And I think she's real close to calling out for Lasha again. So the head of Telemasca and Cyprian, he sees her, he's like, yo, I gotta get to Rowan. And he's like, yo, I'll take you there. Let's go. And they drive off, but he's taking them not to the factory, but a little bit further away where they can see what's happening at the factory, because his whole goal is like, no, we are always supposed to be a surveyor. We're supposed to see these prophecies, see these supernatural, see this stuff. We're not supposed to be hands-on. And I've told you that from the jump. And so we're not going to go save your little girlfriend. We're not going to do all of that. We're going to watch, because I think right now she's about to fulfill her prophecy and become who she's supposed to be, and we're going to witness it. And Cyprian's like on the bridge freaking out, like, how do I get to her? But it feels like it's too late. So Arlo gives Tessa one last chance to display her witchiness, if you will. And she's like, I'm not a witch. I'm not doing it. And so she's holding on to that. I'm not telling what we have as a package with the Mayfairs. And so she starts screaming, and Rowan happens to already have been in the location. She sees it. She texts the family to let her know, but she does still go in without sort of waiting as they have requested. And she comes in guns blazing. She's in full witch mode. She is going in, snapping people's necks and killing people, taking people's blood. Like, she about that life. Like, yo, I'm gonna look in here. Cool, you did. But the fire does get set. So Tessa is kind of like ringing around while fire's happening, while Rowan is still killing others. She takes out the woman. Reaches in, takes out the woman, but not without taking a bullet. She gets shot. So she's down on the ground a little bit. Well, Tessa's like, the fire's happening. She gets a second wind. She gets up there, takes her down, and they start to escape. And then we see Keith, because Arlo is already out. The gentleman who went to go get the fire is out, and the woman is out. So those three are out, but Keith is still available. Keith comes as they're trying to leave. He has them at gunpoint. And right before Rowan can get in there and kill him, he takes a bullet and he shoots Tessa. And at that point, Rowan dispatches of him. And then Rowan is trying to resuscitate, going into doctor mode, trying to resuscitate Tessa, but there's blood literally everywhere. It's just pouring out of her. There's nothing that she can do. She's helpless in the moment. And you know what that means? Only one person she can reach out to. So she takes the necklace off of Tessa, puts it on herself, and starts reciting the words that draw in and bring out Lasher. And then we go to black. It's a fun episode. Again, these last two episodes have been pretty cool back to back. I just wish this momentum that we were on occurred after episode one. Like after we see Deirdre dead in the elevator, these should have been maybe one more episode, like the meeting of them at the parade. That and then this stuff should have sort of taken place. I feel like we could have truncated this season into we're at what 8 episodes total, but 7 episodes where we're at. We could have done what we've done in 7 episodes in 3. Just maybe add 20 minutes on to each episode. Because it now seems like there's a sense of purpose. I also think, unfortunately, we all sort of knew that at some point Rowan was going to take over and become the all-powerful witch. That's sort of the point of this. And I don't know if that's how the books end, if the entire first book is about what's happening here, but I feel like we could have gotten to the point of her being powerful sooner and kind of got to some other stories that may have felt a little bit more, or the tug and pull that the two of them, that Lasher and Rowan had together. Because when Lasher is with Rowan, when the actor who plays Lasher is with Alexandra Daddario, there is some sort of chemistry. But we've kept them apart for so long that you lose that. Because Lasher with pretty much anybody else it doesn't work. But again, another solid episode. Let's see what the finale does. I don't know. I can't quite say if they stick the landing because I think the takeoff was very bumpy. But these last 2 episodes have been really solid, and I'm kind of intrigued, if you will. Not excited, but intrigued to see how the finale actually takes up. What did you guys think about this episode called Tessa? Go ahead, leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We are there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.